Welcome to Mastering the Math of Business with Lauren Young. Today we're going to be talking about a noble aspiration. In fact, I think this is the zone in business ownership that is the best. It's really where, to me, we're all working towards achieving, and that is financial liberty. Financial liberty in business is a function of financial freedom. In other words, the income the business is producing is greater than the obligations and the plans of the business. Financial captivity is the opposite of this. It's where the obligations the business is under or facing, plus the plans they want to do, can't be funded out of the income of the business. That's financial captivity. And the way I like to think about it visually is I think of it in terms of your cash carrying the debt of the business. And so the greater the debt, the more burden on the cash, and that is the strain that occurs. You break free of the captivity that is represented in the debt of the business by managing the cash in such a way that you can begin to have financial liberty. In other words, you're starting to pull away because this is stronger than this. So what does that look like? Well, keep in mind a couple of things. One is financial liberty has its root in a business that's able to profitably operate within its ability to generate sales. In other words, they're consistently able to do that. It comes down to being really mindful of the spend. The costs that run through a business either help that business earn profits or they generate costs that can't be recovered. Financial liberty occurs when you're able to generate consistent returns on the money being invested in a business. You consistently do these two things and you'll be in this space here. Fail to do these two things and you'll be over here. So let's look at a scenario. The scenario here is a business that wants to grow its sales 5%. And they want to increase their return on sales from 9% to 18%. That's the goal. But what happens to this business if they fall short of both sales and profit by 10%? In other words, sales come in short of goal by 10% and they overspend by 10%. That business shifts from being in a place of financial liberty to being in financial captivity. It's that delicate of a balancing act for most small businesses. So here's the math that you need to know to be able to calculate your financial liberty. Within most of these math scenarios, I always like to look at previous year and plan to get an appreciation of where the business has been and what the business is looking to achieve. The next thing you need to do is you need to just step back and think about your assumptions. You know, what happens if you miss sales by X? What happens if you overspend by Y? So we're not going to bother to go back and try to revisit history. So we're just going to leave those at 0. But let's put this -10 and 10 in here in the mix and see what it does to the plan numbers. So you go from planning to generate 10.5 million in sales to now you're at 9. Now you're just shy of 9.5 million. That 10% hit's going to cost you just over $1 million in sales. You overspend by 10%, where you're spending 8.6 million because you're trying to achieve an 18% return on sales. That overspend is also going to cost you $1 million. So now you're going to go from 1.8 million down to 250,000. That's the impact. So this just looks at it from a dollar perspective. Now let's look at it as a percent of sales. You go from an 18% return on sales to a negative 3% return on sales. That's a 20-point swing. In other words, you're up here with an 18% return on sales. That's financial liberty. you miss sales, you overspend, you're now at a 3%, negative 3% return on sales. That gap between the 18 and the negative 3, that's a 20-point gap. And that occurs every time you miss your goals associated with generating the sales and managing those expenses. So with this video, the call to action is really about managing cash as it has the most critical concern for management. In other words, making cash available, that's management's #1 job. The best source of cash is operating cash flow. And that's the difference between what you sell and what you collect. That becomes your net cash inflow. And then what you hold on to after all of the monies are spent, that's your net income. The point is, if you don't manage your cash to create profits, you'll never get to the profitability you deserve, nor will you have the cash position that you need to take some of the stress and anxiety out of being a small business owner. If you visit businesscpr.com and there's a hyphen between business and CPR, you'll be able to access 9 tips for improving your cash position, 9 key concepts that you can read to improve your cash position. As with all videos, the purpose of these videos are to position you to ultimately be in this zone, this financial freedom zone, as opposed to struggling with financial captivity. If there's something particular in this video you'd like to better understand, drop me a note in the comments section. If there's a different set of math that you'd like to see, I welcome the request and I'll honor it. If you like this video, likes are always appreciated, as well as subscriptions. Subscriptions expose you to more of the content that's coming out from the Business CPR platform. Thanks again for tuning in. Look forward to joining you on another edition of Mastering the Math of Business with Warren.